Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Young and Restless is taking us on a dark ride courtesy of Sharon's psychosis, and good or bad, this story has everyone talking. Of course, other characters' lives are continuing to unravel all around her as well. Here's a look at what happened and what's coming up. Cracks have been emerging in Jack and Diane's relationship ever since she decided to ken Kyle, and those fissures are about to become a chasm. Indeed, we see them having yet another public disagreement in the preview for next week, and this one ends with Diane walking out. While Jack's been well and truly blinded by love for ends now, it seems Billy's recent comment opened his eyes just a tad. That remark, of course, was, "Word on the street is that you're losing power at Jabot to your wife." That was followed up by Diane demanding that they hire someone for Kyle's former position and totally dismissing Jack's concerns. Fast forward to next week, and Jack has clearly said something to his wife about overstepping, as she explodes and accuses him of not accepting that she's changed. Maybe that's because she hasn't. Where's it all headed? Well, as we know, Kyle pilfered a top-secret new formula from Diane's laptop to hand to Victor, which will give Glissade a huge win in the market over Jabot, and give Kyle's dented ego the revenge fuel it needs to feel better. But it all adds up to a huge wake-up call for Jackie Boy when his company, his family, and his marriage all end up in crisis simultaneously. Lest we thought Sharon's dark thoughts had been extinguished by the shock of Heather's death, Cameron quickly returned to remind us, and her, that she still has a score to settle with Daniel. One would think having his wife murdered would be enough karmic payback, but apparently he needs to be framed for the killing as well. Oi! In next week's preview, we see Sharon stuffing the bloody towels into his liquor cabinet to make him look guilty. I, for one, am going to need to know what she does with the rest of the evidence she removed from the scene. Will she turn Heather's phone back on and stick it in there too, so as to lead the police to the damning discovery? While the frame-up will certainly work in the short term, unless the GCPD is incredibly incompetent, which they may well be, Daniel should be free in no time. Why? Once Heather's time of death is established, Daniel will have a concrete alibi. He was with Lucy at the athletic club when she died. Before meeting his daughter, he was also seen in public. If the Keystone cops mess that up, there's also the matter of security camera footage that's bound to come to light. In 2024, you can't tell me there isn't footage from that building or the bridge to help exonerate someone. Hey, with Paul heading back to Genoa City, maybe he'll get to the bottom of this case. We also have to consider the possibility that Sharon will ultimately confess, particularly knowing Veil Blue's teaser for what's ahead. Of course, this is a soap, so Daniel may languish behind bars for a while before the truth comes out. What really happened that night? Find out who I believe may have actually killed Heather here. Well, Kyle managed to get Audra fired. What will become of her now? She's burned her bridges with virtually every company in town. Billy invited Sally to his launch party, just like Adam did when they first got together, but Phyllis is leaning on him for support. Are we gearing up for another battle of the redheads? Adam tried to shoot his shot with Sally again this week, and I had to wonder why he bothered considering he's supposed to be all about Chelsea now. Speaking of, they may have history, but Adam and Chelsea's scenes are not giving the feels. That crucial element has been absent throughout this entire storyline. The opinions expressed are my own. Please leave your thoughts on this week's Young and Restless in the comments. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring blankly at the wall. The ticking of the clock filled the silence, a reminder that time was running out. Just a week ago, his life had been simple, mundane even. A 9-to-5 job at a marketing firm, the occasional dinner with friends, and weekends spent playing video games. But now, everything had changed. The weight of his decisions bore down on him like a leaden blanket, suffocating and inescapable. It had all started with a seemingly innocuous choice. A late-night text from an old friend, Jake. "You still in town? Come hang out." The temptation had been too great. Daniel had met Jake back in college, a charming rogue who had an uncanny ability to find trouble and make it look like fun. They had shared many wild nights, filled with laughter, recklessness, and a hint of danger. That night, Daniel had stepped out of his comfort zone. Jake had taken him to a warehouse party, pulsing with music and bright lights. The energy was intoxicating, and Daniel felt alive. As the hours slipped away, he found himself swept into a world that was as thrilling as it was chaotic. But as the party raged on, so did the whispers of something darker, a deal that Jake was making in the shadows. "Just a quick job," Jake had said, his eyes glinting with excitement. "We'll be in and out before anyone notices." Daniel hesitated, feeling the familiar tug of moral responsibility battling against the thrill of adventure. In the end, he had nodded, caught up in the fervor of the moment. They hadn't been in the warehouse long before the chaos erupted. They were supposed to grab a few bags and leave, but the operation went south. Daniel remembered the sound of sirens slicing through the music and the panic that ensued. They dashed through the darkened hallways, adrenaline pumping. But in the flurry, Daniel's heart sank as he saw the flashing lights drawing closer. In the weeks that followed, Daniel's life spiraled into uncertainty. Jake had vanished, leaving Daniel to face the fallout. The police were conducting raids, searching for the people involved in that night's chaos. Daniel had made a promise to himself that he would stay out of trouble, but with each passing day, the fear of being arrested haunted him like a shadow. One afternoon, Daniel found himself pacing the small living room of his apartment, the walls closing in on him. He couldn't sit still, knowing that every moment could be the one when the knock on the door would come. His phone buzzed, and he hesitated before answering. It was his sister, Claire. She could always sense when something was off. "Hey Daniel, you okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Yeah, just busy with work," he lied, forcing a smile that she couldn't see. "Don't you dare lie to me. I know you. You sound different." He sighed, the weight of his secret heavy on his shoulders. "It's just been a rough couple of weeks. Isn't about Jake? You shouldn't be hanging out with him. I don't like the crowd he runs with." Daniel felt a surge of guilt. Claire had always been the responsible one, and here he was, tangled in a mess of his own making. I know. I thought I could handle it." "Handle what?" she pressed, and he felt cornered. "Just nothing. I promise I'll be fine," he said, trying to deflect. "Daniel, if you're in trouble, you need to talk to someone. Please." After they hung up, he sat in silence, contemplating the enormity of his situation. He had never wanted to be the kind of person who ended up in jail, yet now he could feel the bars closing in. Each day brought a new level of anxiety. What if he got arrested? What would happen to his job? To Claire? To everything he had built? The next day, Daniel made a decision. He would confront his fear head-on. He needed to take control of his life again, and that meant coming clean. He gathered his courage and headed to the police station, his heart racing with every step. As he entered, the sterile atmosphere came like a wave. He approached the desk, trying to steady his breath. "I'd like to report something," he said, his voice shaking slightly. The officer behind the desk looked up, eyebrow raised. "What do you want to report?" "I was at a party a few weeks ago. I think I might know something about what happened there." The officer's interest piqued, and Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the first step toward freedom. After a lengthy conversation, Daniel explained everything. He recounted the events of that night, omitting his own culpability as much as he could. When he finally finished, the officer leaned back, arms crossed, studying him with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "You realize this could put you in a tough spot, right?" the officer asked, eyes narrowing. "I know," Daniel replied, his heart thudding in his chest. "But I need to do this." As he left the station, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter, if only slightly. It was a gamble, but he had chosen honesty over fear. In the following days, he received a call from the detective handling the case. "We appreciate your cooperation, Daniel. Your information has been valuable. However, there are still legal processes to go through. We'll keep you posted." The uncertainty loomed over him, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe he wouldn't go to jail. Maybe he could turn this around. Weeks passed, and Daniel continued to live in a state of limbo, navigating his daily life while waiting for news. Every knock at the door made his heart race, but he remained resolute. He would face whatever consequences came his way, no matter how difficult. Finally, he received the call he had been waiting for. The detective explained that they had gathered enough evidence to make arrests, and Daniel's name wasn't on the list. "You're in the clear," the detective said. "You did the right thing." Relief washed over him, and tears stung his eyes. He had faced his fears and emerged on the other side, a stronger person for it. That night, Daniel sat on his bed, staring at the wall once more. But this time, he felt a sense of peace. He had chosen a different path, And while it had been fraught with uncertainty, he had learned a valuable lesson about courage and integrity. The ticking clock no longer felt oppressive. It was a reminder of the time he had reclaimed, the life he was determined to live.